There are those scooters that aren't fast, aren't powerful, aren't exciting, and don't give you an adrenaline rush, yet they still have their place in traffic. These are the stick scooters, like the AOVO T1 Pro. Today, I'm going to introduce it to you. We'll talk about the exterior, the specifications, the mobile app, and of course, at the end, what it was like to use it. So let's dive right in. I'll begin with the assembly and the unboxing process, as I always typically do. With this particular scooter, there really isn't much that you actually need to do, because all you truly have to do is simply attach the handlebar. There are 2 screws in the front and 2 screws in the back for this. With the 2 screws in the back, you need to attach this hook, which is actually used so that the scooter can be folded and lifted up. There's nothing else to assemble. Obviously, you need to adjust the brake. The front wheel has a regenerative brake, which also feeds some energy back into the battery when braking. On the rear wheel, there is a mechanical disc brake. Adjusting this is what you need to do. Basically, there's nothing else you need to do. And now we can dive right into the specifications. So, as I mentioned, the electric brake is in the front wheel. That's also where the motor is, which is a 350-watt motor. The manufacturer says that the motor's peak power can even reach 500 watts. It can't, even the 350 watts is, in my opinion, a bit of a stretch, but maybe it does reach that. As I mentioned, there's another brake in the rear wheel. On the rear wheel, we have another brake, a disc brake. This is a mechanical disc brake. The battery is 10.4 amp hours, and according to the manufacturer, with this we can go up to 40 kilometers, which of course, again, won't actually be true. The wheels are airless, made of solid rubber, but they are bigger than on the previous generation, because the previous generation, the ES80, still used 8-inch wheels. But on this scooter, there are already 10-inch wheels. And it's not just that the wheel is 10 inches because the rim itself is bigger, but the tire is also thicker. So even though the tire is solid, it's still somewhat softer and has better suspension than the old scooter did. The specifications also include the weight, which is only 14 kilos in total, so this is a very easy to carry, very portable scooter. Its size is relatively small. You can put it in a car trunk, take it on a tram, metro, and so on and so on. And then after getting off, you can use it to get around the city. According to the manufacturer, its top speed is around 30 kilometers per hour. Well, I didn't reach that speed myself. What's also very interesting and quite notable is that compared to the previous generation, the ES80, this scooter now comes equipped with a shock absorber. And really, these are the 2 most important things about this scooter compared to the previous generation, because the motor power, the battery capacity, the overall size, and the total weight are all precisely the same, but this particular scooter now has significantly larger wheels and also features a much improved suspension system. So now I'll show you what this impressive device looks like from the outside, and then at the very end we'll thoroughly discuss what it was truly like to use and what my personal experiences were with it. So as is customary, we'll begin with the handlebars. It's very important to note that the handlebars are relatively small, measuring about 40 centimeters wide, which is not very wide at all, and this definitely affects the overall usability. This is primarily because this particular scooter isn't very stable at higher speeds. Luckily, you can't go very fast with it anyway. Of course, it's no coincidence that the handlebars are this size, since this is a portable last-mile device, meaning it's designed for the last mile or last kilometer, intended by the manufacturer for you to drive to the People's Art parking lot with your car. There, you take it out of the trunk and cover the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 kilometers with this scooter. Of course, the very same principle applies to public transportation as well, meaning it's relatively easy and convenient to travel with this compact scooter on public transport too, since it's quite small and remarkably lightweight. And that's also precisely why the handlebar is so very narrow. The controls, by the way, are the usual ones. On the left-hand side, there's a visible brake lever and an integrated bell system. On the right side, you'll find the throttle. In the middle, there's the display, which, to put it mildly, isn't very informative. Basically, what we see on it is the battery charge level, but we only see this as a small bar. We can see the speed, and we can also see which mode we're in. There are 3 modes. There's an eco mode, a standard mode, and a sport mode. What's particularly interesting is that in sport mode, the numerical display on the screen turns a vibrant red. Not that this truly signifies anything, since you absolutely won't be speeding with this scooter, no matter how intensely red that number appears on the display. it still won't be fast. Otherwise, we're talking about a completely average stick scooter, in terms of size and in every other aspect as well. What makes it special, of course, is the suspension solution at both the front and rear wheels. The front suspension is basically a C-type suspension, a very simple C-type, where the shock absorption and the spring are not in the usual place inside the C, but are instead positioned here on the outside. The reason for this is really simple. Basically, it just wouldn't fit inside, so they had to put it somewhere. Here, the front wheel contains the motor, while the rear wheel does not have a motor. There's nothing in the rear wheel, just the spokes and this small mechanical disc brake. And then here are the shock absorbers, or more precisely, the rear suspension here at the back, which provides suspension for the rear wheel. There are two things about the scooter's exterior that I didn't like. One of them can be seen here. This is really quite terrible, this welding, it's just slapped together. It looks really, really ugly the way it's welded here. The other thing is this cable tie, which is kind of, this is a really cheap penny pinching twist on thing, and they could have come up with something nicer instead, because otherwise there's nothing wrong with the scooter. It's perfectly good, perfectly usable. One thing you need to watch out for, and the manufacturer also warns about this, is not to step on the rear fender because it can break off easily. You can see that it's made of pretty thin material, so really don't step on it. By the way, this won't be too easy because the footboard itself isn't very big, so you have to pay attention to that. For example, my size 43, 44 foot barely fits on it. I absolutely have to keep my back foot sideways so the front one can fit, so you really have to be careful not to step on the rear fender so it doesn't break off. What else do I need to mention? Well, the folding and unfolding mechanism is completely simple. This hasn't changed compared to the previous version. It does its job perfectly well. I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. The other thing is that we have a light. There's a front light, which you can see from the inside, and it shines somewhat downward, but not at a very good angle. So it lights up the road quite far ahead of the scooter, and the light itself isn't very strong either. So let's just say that this is not a particularly well-designed piece. We have a rear light on the back fender. This is pretty good, its brightness is quite decent, and when I pull the brake lever, it starts flashing. So it also works as a brake light. While I was showing off the scooter here, we can move on to the app, since the app that comes with the scooter is not particularly complicated. I use the Smart Life app for it, which I also use for other devices, so it was obvious that I would add the scooter under this app as well. There aren't too many settings available, but there are two very important options nonetheless. One of them is instant start. So when we set off and press the throttle, we don't have to push the scooter to get it going. Starts immediately. The other is removing the speed limit. We can remove it for all three modes, or we can set the maximum speed for each of the three modes individually. Which is also good in the sense that if a child is using the scooter, you can set the maximum speed they can go. And if they don't have a phone with them and can't connect, they won't be able to change it either. So let's just say it's not a bad safety feature either. There's one more thing. You can also turn on cruise control. And there's another feature that might be interesting. You can log the route you took with the scooter, but apart from that, the app doesn't really do anything else. It's super simple, as they say, dead simple. There aren't too many settings on it. Anyway, it exists, and honestly, it's good that it does, because it lets us adjust these hidden features too. Now that we've thoroughly covered these important things, it's time for a comprehensive review of what it was truly like to use the scooter. Well, of course, the factory specifications only just approximate the real-world data, since you can't actually travel as far on a single charge as was promised, and you can't go as fast as they claim either. This means that, for me personally, when I really pushed it hard, riding in sport mode at its absolute maximum, I think you can comfortably cover about 15 to 18 kilometers on a single full charge easily. Of course, if you ride more economically, you can certainly cover a significantly longer distance with it. But this unfortunately comes with the significant drawback that not only the maximum top speed, but also the overall performance noticeably decreases. So even on the smallest inclines, getting up becomes a real problem in normal mode, and the scooter noticeably slows down. For example, even on a typical bridge ramp, so chances are you absolutely won't be riding in the lowest mode. You probably use the more powerful middle or sport mode instead. In a sport mode, the maximum speed can be set to as high as 60 kilometers per hour, but the scooter can't actually go that fast. Naturally, with my 93 kilos, the maximum speed it could actually reach was 24 kilometers per hour. They also specify all sorts of impressive hill climbing capabilities for it, which is quite remarkable and truly impressive. You can pretty much forget about those. You'll only be able to go up the most basic inclines with it. So, for example, a bridge ramp is perfectly fine. A very gently sloping or slightly uphill street is also fine, but really, this scooter is made for flat roads. As for using it, apart from this lack of power, I can't really mention many other negatives. Because I previously had the earlier version, the ES80, which had 8-inch wheels and no suspension, but delivered the same performance and speed, and that was a much less comfortable scooter to use than this one. With this scooter, thanks to the larger wheels, I'd even dare to take on slightly longer distances. So if I have to go 5 or 10 kilometers, that's still perfectly acceptable, and even 15 kilometers is doable if there's really no other option. I'd be willing to set off with this scooter, even if the road isn't in the best condition, if it's a bit icy, there's cobblestone, and so on. You can get through those as well. Since the wheels are relatively large, their suspension, it's actually quite usable. It doesn't provide any excitement or anything, it just gets you from point A to point B. As I said, this is a last mile device and should be treated as such, so you shouldn't expect anything extra or special from it. It really is just for getting you the last 1 to 5 kilometers between your car, public transport, and your final destination as comfortably and sweat-free as possible. I can recommend this scooter even for younger teenagers, since, as I mentioned, you can limit the speed from your phone and prevent it from racing at 24 kilometers per hour. You can even set a lower maximum speed, which also reduces the chance of accidents. Because of the larger wheels, it gets stuck less easily than its predecessor. As I mentioned, thanks to the suspension, it can also be used in worse road conditions. So all in all, considering that this is a relatively light, a small scooter that doesn't offer any real excitement, it's still quite a significant improvement compared to its predecessor, the ES80, if you can keep its limitations in mind, if you don't want to climb hills with it, and if you want to use it as a last mile device, then I definitely recommend it to you. For this kind of use, this scooter is perfectly suitable, and of course it doesn't cost too much either. Below the video, you'll find a link to the manufacturer's online store, as well as a coupon code that gives you a €10 discount on the price of the scooter. If you enjoyed this video, choose one of the other 2 test videos appearing next to me, and check those out too. Subscribe to the channel and come back soon, because I'll be posting more new reviews shortly. In the meantime, take care and enjoy the summer. Bye!